Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have an amazing upload to share with you. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they do matter. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? All right, so there's a couple of things that today's upload is going to contain. A very interesting experience that a couple young women had in Colorado. I found this very interesting article along with some photos in the Daily Mail. I was finally able to quickly get in touch with the gentleman who worked with the Canadian intelligence and United States intelligence. He was the gentleman who told me some coordinates about a Canadian/United States deep underground military base in an area called the Eye of Canada, or Rene Levasseur Island. Very interesting place. And a gentleman that I've been trying to, actually both of these guys I've been trying to get in touch with. The gentleman about the Rene Levasseur, I have a burner phone and I turn it off, turn it on when I use it, turn it off when it's not in use. It's not connected to the internet. It's just strictly a phone number for texting and calling. So we finally were able to connect, and I had asked him if he had any more information in regards to that area. And he said, just a little, but let me call you later today, which he did. Unfortunately, the conversation was not as long as I'd hoped. And then the gentleman that I've been trying to get in touch with for 7 to 8 months now had reached out in the live stream one night on a Saturday, and he had talked a little bit about a 40-year-old experience that he and a couple of other folks had while in South America. And he had made one kind of mention of a word that caught me, and I was like, please contact me. He emailed me from one of those Proton or whatever the hell they are emails. So it's like, can't be hacked or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I don't trust anything that's on the internet lately, actually, any kind of communication. But I'd responded back, and this must have been like his second account because he didn't respond. Finally, he saw my response to his, and he gave me his real email address, so we were able to connect. And then some very interesting experiences that happened in the late 70s, early 80s in South America. And of course, during that time, the area down there was kind of at a huge civil war. It was a lot of unrest. U.S. government was supplying money and weapons. The CIA was involved, and in places where we didn't even know they were involved in. And I'm not just talking about the Contras and the 80s crack epidemic. I'm talking other things. So I'm going to get into all that right now. All right, so we're going to jump into the Rene Levasseur information. The area of Rene Levasseur is, I think the government didn't pick it out, I believe, and he believes it was pre-planned. Everything was set prior to our government even having the capability of having a deep underground military base. So Rene Levasseur Island is a large island in the center of Lake Manicouagan in Quebec, Canada. Its highest peak is Mount Babel at 952 meters or 3,123 feet, which is contained in the Louis Babel Ecological Reserve with a total of 2,020 kilometers and the diameter of 50.7 kilometers. The island is larger in area than the annular lake in which it is situated. Rene Levasseur Island is the world's second largest lake island, and the largest is in Lake Huron. The geological structure was formed, and this is where he and I would talk a little bit about, do you think? The structure was formed by an impact of an asteroid some 214 million years ago. The asteroid is believed to have been about 5 kilometers in diameter and would have hit the Earth at the speed of 17 kilometers a second, the fifth most powerful known impact that Earth had seen. The impact of the asteroid formed a crater roughly 100 kilometers in diameter, the center of which forms the island known today. It became an artificial island when the Manicouagan Reservoir was flooded in the 70s, merging the two crescent-shaped lakes, Manicouagan on the eastern side and the Mochalagan Lake on the western side. Now, the indigenous in that area seldom go there. They don't really shun it, but they don't make it a point to go on this island. And they could, they stated the island is actually bigger than the annular lake it sits in. It's a very strange piece of land. Now, it's called the Eye of Quebec. Now, when he and I were talking, I was like, it was hit by an asteroid some 200 million years ago. Do you think, quite possibly, that this asteroid was something other than an asteroid or carried something with it? We discussed that for a little bit, and quite possibly that could have been the case. And he stated to me that while in and around the island, he and other folks have seen dogmen being used as well as military soldiers patrolling this kind of isolated ecological kind of reserve laboratory or whatever, the entrance to the deep underground military base. And he said that he truly believes that these dogmen were possibly the descendants of the Sumerian text talking about a dog-headed race of aliens. Because these dogmen supposedly had, when they were spotted, and they were across the island. So the island sits here. It's a very small piece of water that separates mainland Quebec from this island. But they didn't hesitate to run and jump into the water while these guys are getting into their vehicle and speeding off, these dogmen were chasing them. And dogmen have been known to chase people, but just a very strange aggression right there. Like, they are protecting something. Something valuable is in that location. So with that aggression, he truly, the way he explains everything really does sound like there is a reason that these things are so aggressive, protecting this strange deep underground military base. Per his words, a genetic experimentation lab and other things similar to Dulce, probably not as complex as Dulce is or was back in the day. We really don't know what Dulce is as of right yet still. But this was his brush with these dogmen was only 12 years ago. And he was working with the Canadian government at the time. He wasn't a intruder like you or I going up there, standing, looking. He was meant to be there. He had some sort of job that he was up there for, which he did not go into detail. So he's going to sit down with me sometime this week and go into detail on what that job was and exactly what he was doing there that day, and what he saw. He said that the most I've gotten out of him was there were 4 armed military with these 2 dogmen. At first, they thought they were just huge German shepherds, these grayish black German shepherds, because the haunches of them came up to like the guy's armpits. These things were enormous. And they were walking with these armed soldiers. But when these dogmen caught wind of these guys standing on the opposite side, off of this island on mainland, the soldiers didn't even see them yet. And they watched these dogmen run off of the soldiers' side, stand bipedal, run side by side, hit the lake. And it's, like I said, very narrow right there, and swim across it as he and his co-workers are getting into their vehicle and speeding off. And these dogmen chased him and his co-workers for a couple of miles from the initial point of Rene Levasseur. So they are protecting something. What would have happened if they were able to catch these guys? Probably a really tragic attack that we never would have heard. All right, so that's one thing that I wanted to touch on. This very interesting, and I've got a couple pictures that I want to share with you. It came from the Daily Mail, and it's 2 young women in the Rockies, Colorado, and they spot a very, very interesting and rather large cryptid. And I want to ask you guys what you think, because the more I read into certain things and the more I look into like the Book of Enoch and other things, Enoch, however you want to pronounce it, the Book of Giants and others, I have my own opinion on things. I'm starting to think that some of these cryptids that we see were created genetically by alien or demons, whichever you want to call them, or were a product of the fallen angel Nephilim genetic crossing, because these fallen angels, and they really, the majority of them weren't cast out. I don't know why we call them fallen angels. They were sent here. But the majority of these not only bred with human women, but animals as well. And if you have an angelic, I hate saying creature, but an angelic creature breeding with animals, and there is an offspring produced, it's not going to be that same animal, and it's going to be a cryptid or a Nephilim. Could Dogman be a product of breeding? Bigfoot, a product of this breeding? Who knows? I don't know. I've just been thinking about it, but I wanted to share that with you. And this interesting article, you'll see. All right, before we get into the next order of business, I want to kind of address something really quick. I had talked about something on Saturday's live stream, and I kind of addressed it because, well, people had been emailing me about it. And anyone that emailed me about it, I pretty much said the same thing. On the 13th of October, I became aware of a strange case of an attack in Montana. Dustin Mitchell Carjum, and he's a 35-year-old man from Belgrade, Montana. And he had been camping in a tent about 2.5 miles in the middle of nowhere. 911 call came in from one of his friends and said that it was a bear attack. Now, when the police had come on the scene, they do locate the tent. There is just a mass amount of blood and large lacerations, just hacks and chunks. And I guess I've never witnessed or seen the aftermath of a bear attack, but I can only imagine how it would look. But initially, because of the 911 call and everything else, the location and such, law enforcement had told the media, hey, it's a bear attack. We're looking into it. And then they brought the body to the medical examiner's office. The medical examiner cleaned him up, got everything, and then said, hey, this is not a bear attack. This is a homicide. He looked to have been hacked up by what appears to be a hatchet. And so the 13th, I'm looking at this and I'm like, that's crazy. I wanted to wait and see how the case played out. And of course, people emailed me, hey, have you seen this? Especially after a larger channel and researcher had kind of talked a little bit about it. And I'm not even speculating, because it's a crime. It's a true crime. It's not a cryptid attack. It's not any kind of high strangeness. It's a savage, human on human attack. And so my response to the people were, they did to me. And I've been, I'm not an expert on anything, but I've looked into enough cases, Corey Godsey, Amber Miller, Tony Aarons, Brenna Hamilton, Nancy Shaw, and more, to look and isolate different things in the media's wording and such, and how law enforcement plays. And there is nothing unscrupulous going on with the media or law enforcement. They immediately, once they realized, holy cow, we made a mistake, they immediately said, this is not a bear attack. This is a savage homicide. We are encouraging people to help us, And usually when the media and law enforcement are working hand in hand to make a cover up, they are not asking for help. They would have kept it. All right. If this was, in my eyes, if this was a Dogman or any kind of cryptid attack, they would have kept it as a bear attack. But, they immediately came clean and said, hey, this is what it is. And it's an unfortunate and savage attack on a young man, 35 years old, camping. So there has been no updates in the homicide. Police have been pretty good about sharing any kind of information they can share without ruining their case. They've got to find out who did this. But I just kind of wanted to address it because I keep getting emails and people are like, it looks like a Dogman attack. No, it looks like a tragic homicide. If it was a Dogman attack, I don't believe they would have switched it from a bear attack. The media is doing their due diligence, and law enforcement is amazing on this case. And I wish the family all the best. My prayers are with them. I pray for law enforcement to catch this crazy person that could do something like this. But I just wanted to kind of address that because to me it doesn't look, it's a true crime and it's tragic, and I'm not gonna go any further. And I'm not gonna disrespect the person's family and this man. They're not doing anything. Law enforcement has done nothing unordinary. They've done their due diligence, and they continue to do it. So let's move on. Today's third kind of bit of business that I want to share with you all, and there will be photos at the end of this part of the upload here. A couple young women were hiking, and they came across a very unusual cryptid monster. And this is my question to you. Going back to, could Dogman possibly be, or not all, but part, be a product of a Nephilim? And, are all Nephilim gigantic, Goliath-like? Or would a 20-foot tall, lanky, cryptid-like creature, could that be considered a Nephilim at 20 feet tall? I don't know. I don't know what to classify it as. But it's a very strange one. And the first young woman, one of the reasons why I really think that these young women are not lying is because one of the girls, his name's Jessie Clausen, 29 years old of Boulder, Colorado. She was part of the Peace Corps and went over to Botswana in 2019 and 20 to help with the AIDS-ravaged people there. This is a young woman who has dedicated her life to humanity. Not even interested in cryptids, just saw this crazy 20-foot tall, lanky, monster-like cryptid scaling a mountainside. So, to me, it's someone like that doesn't have any, fascination with cryptids, paranormal. I kind of consider this true, She's got nothing to gain from this. Jessie Clausen, 29, and Camille Avarella, 28, were descending long peaks in the Rockies when they unwittingly caught the lanky gray creature on camera as it appeared to scale the crag. The Denver-based duo didn't see the beast at the time of their trek in August of August 24th, but noticed it lurking in the backdrop of a photograph as they reminisced about their adventure weeks later. I was shocked to the bone when we were looking at this photo. Behavioral analyst Clausen. We didn't take the picture because we saw that thing. We just took it because the mountain range was pretty. Clausen said they set off on an intrepid walk at 2 a.m. to conquer the 14,000-foot crag by dusk the next day. She said they had been walking for 7 hours when they snapped the figure just after scaling the peak at around 9 a.m. We were in full adrenaline mode, so we weren't really paying attention, said Clausen. Graphic designer Avarella explained that they were sharing photographs with family on the plasma screen TV when they first noticed the creature. Camille's dad said, "What the hell is that thing? It's at least 20 feet long or so." And Camille was like, "Should we call Rangers?" Clausen recalled. We were all like, "What the hell is that?" "It could be a rock," Avarella said, "but it has all the features of a humanoid." "We are open to interpretation," said Clausen. "It was far away. It couldn't really do anything to us. I like to think maybe it's an alien. It's so human-like, and it's freaky as hell." The duo said that although they are keen to see the creature again, they will not be embarking on that 15-hour trek ever again. "I hope someone else does it and sees it," Clausen said. So, and that's a lot of the times people have caught things just randomly. Scott Carpenter's famous Bigfoot video or whatever photo, just walking through the woods, backpack camera facing the backside, and catches it. He didn't even see it. But these young women, graphic designer, behavioral analyst, Peace Corps, just on a hike, and boom, there's this. Should we call the Rangers? Yeah, probably. Maybe. I don't know. But here are those photos. Tell me what you guys think. I'm kind of on their side. But my question is a 20-foot tall or 20-foot long kind of crawler-like creature, would that be considered a giant, a Nephilim? What would you... Obviously, it's a cryptid because we don't know what it is. But all the more interesting, I think. What do you guys think? All right, so today's last part of the upload, during a live stream 7-8 months ago, I had noticed a comment, and I try to keep up with the comment section in the lives. They go real quick. I had just done an upload in regards to a couple of gentlemen had seen or had been trapped by 2 dogmen and a large humanoid, which I referred to as a Nephilim. It was 18, 20 foot in height. Human in every way, unlike that picture that we just saw. To me, that's a 20-foot crawler. And if it is that big, that's a dangerous, dangerous creature. And these dogmen seemed to be working with this Nephilim and had trapped these guys one of the guys had been really badly injured. And the comment, pretty much something along the lines of, it is true, dogmen do work with huge giants. I have had an experience long ago. And Rockin' Steady and 59th, both subscribers and mods on my channel, shot up my email. I shot out my email. I think Janie did as well to this guy. And I've been trying to really coordinate a time with him. He's retired and everything. But his experience, what he had happen and what he had heard, all occurred in the late 70s, early 80s in South America. He was working as he had just gotten out of the military. He was he was working for a private contracting company as security. And apparently a American-based logging company. Once again, this is late 70s, early 80s, when shit was going crazy in South and Central America. A lot of civil unrest, a lot of wars, the CIA, Contras, everything was just, our government was not at their best. I don't think in my 48 years of life, I don't think I've ever seen our government be at its best. But they are hired to accompany this American-based logging company to go from Bolivia into the southwestern most part of the state of Amazon, and go into this area to recover mahogany. And I guess there's some laws on the books now that you can't do anything like that. But this, back in the day, if you were American based, you did hire security, not only for any kind of civil unrest that's going on, but there are indigenous tribes in this jungle that will pursue and kill you. So they come up through Bolivia, and they get into this huge rainforest, the Amazon rainforest, in hopes of finding this large patch of mahogany and cut it all down, unfortunately. Now, when they get in, it takes them a while to actually get to where they are going. From Bolivia, they had to get onto boats, go into the forest. There's a lot of wetland, the river, and just, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Not only do you have the Amazon, but you have other huge rivers that run through this area as well, all used as a mode of transportation. And there are villages along these rivers and such, and they are not what we consider a city, but they are kind of a hub for trade, contracting work, and other things. So they're there for roughly 16 days, about a half a month, he said. And after this trip, he refused to ever work in South America again. He said it was the worst. One, the people that we worked for, the company that was based in America, were criminal at best, but the shit he saw over there was just he still has nightmares from it. So they get into this kind of on this river village, and they are talking to people, trying to figure out where this patch of trees, this land that had been bought, is, how to get to it, hire some guides. They do have security, but these guys are not guides. They are not from here. And they get on their trek. As they are going up, they start to notice just weird things throughout this trip. At one point, he said that we had seen a body in the river. We had fished it out. We were told by the guide not to touch it, but we did. It was a human, and we didn't feel it was right. These guys are from that area, so they know, hey, just leave it be. It's probably infested with disease, and you don't want to mess with it. But when they had taken this body out of the river, it appeared to have been mauled by something. And a few of the guys were like, oh, it was just probably fish or some kind of aquatic, maybe a jaguar, something from the jungle or from the river. They end up getting to this location, the closest village to where they are going to get to their land, where their trees are and all this wood that they had purchased. And they start talking to there's some missionaries working there. There is obvious indigenous people as well. Not indigenous loincloth, bow and arrow, spears, but indigenous people from this region wearing 1960 hand-me-downs. Nothing, you give them a 1960 Nike shirt or whatever. I don't even know if Nike was around in the 60s. But you give them something and they'll still keep it and wear it forever, he said. They were not rich people, but they were good people. So they start talking to some folks as they are getting land. And one of the gentlemen spoke amazing English. And he had, I guess, worked as a guide for the missionary. So they're at this kind of bar area, drinking some beers. And because for the next half a month, they are going to be keeping guard of these loggers, making sure nothing happens to them, their wood, or anything else. And one of the guys that they're talking to says, be careful of, and he had said this name. He doesn't remember the name. It was some sort of South American term for a dogman. And, just keep your eye out for these creatures. They're very dangerous. They're in trees. They're on the ground. They will get you on a boat if by chance you disturb their hunting lands or whatnot. He had said that apparently a real indigenous tribe had been wiped out just recently in this area. By a few of these creatures, went right in and just wiped the whole village out. And these are people that have never seen humans, someone from America, but the missionaries had stumbled across this village, and immediately this guy knew, holy shit, he could see the telltale signs of this was a dogman attack. And once again, did not say dogman. So they get to where the land was purchased, and they see some trucks and such had already been there. They're building a road from the river into the woods. And because there had been a group of loggers prior, this is like the third or fourth group that came in. Definitely not the first. So there was another group of security officers as well. Not security officers. Private military security. Private security officers, I guess. And so they get in and they walk from the boat. They're walking down this just real shitty dirt road, but it's better than walking through the forest. They're getting chowed down by bugs, seeing stuff they never imagined seeing. And they finally get to where the logging spot is. They end up talking to some of the other contractors, security contractors and such. And, just bullshitting. These guys are getting ready to leave. He's staying in for half a month to a month. However long it is for this next security team and next loggers to come. That's when they'll leave, get paid. So one of the security contractors had known him through his time in the military. And he said, listen, there's some shit out in the woods in this jungle that you don't want to enter. These jungles, day, night, don't go too far from where we are now. And if you do bring someone with you, we've had some pretty hairy run-ins with, we don't even know what these things are. They are just large, dangerous creatures. You will hear them at night. You will hear them in the day. You will not see them. And if you do, it is too late. He walks over, brings him to this tent area. They're sleeping in tents and huts, essentially. And they're getting ready to leave, so they've got body bags transporting people out. And there's two of these private contractors that are in there torn apart. Just really. And he said, was it a jaguar? Was it this? And he said, no, it was a fucking werewolf. And, immediately he's like, a werewolf. And then he thinks back to what he had just heard in this village prior to where they are now. And he tells him this story. We saw this guy and, his body was in the river. We flipped him over. The guide told us not to touch him. And then we were talking to some of these missionary guides and such, drinking beers with them, before we got here. And they told us about these dog creatures, these werewolves. So they do exist. And he said, absolutely, 100% they exist. Be careful. Just, here's the proof. Don't go in the woods. Don't go too far. If you hear something that a scream, a yell, any kind of noise, some sort of chattering, people talking, don't go. Because chances are it's not what you think it is. If you hear someone talking and you see everyone right here in this encampment, it's not a human. It's something else. There is stuff in this jungle that we are not meant to see, and we shouldn't even be here. These guys are just dead set about getting the hell out. So a couple days go by, and everybody that was previously there leave. They bring the people who had perished there out, and new supplies are brought in. So now it's this encampment of fresh loggers, fresh security, fresh guides, and a couple of people who are indigenous to the area that he figured out probably came from the kind of river city that they had just been in, came in for work and whatnot, pretty much labor, and they weren't skilled to chainsaw or anything. They were just there to lug and get paid crap for doing work that these loggers and other American workers are getting good money for. About a week and a half go by, and everything's pretty decent. A few people have gotten sick from, drinking water, eating stuff, bug bites, occasional snake bite, just the basic craziness of a jungle. But nothing cryptid, nothing like what he was saying. So he's now thinking, and he's talking to his other security contractors, like, were they pulling our leg? What the fuck do you think they were? And one of the guys says, I was in the military with this other guy, and he started telling me stuff about, the jungle, that there are, you hear someone talking, and you step into the jungle, and it's almost like the jungle just kind of warped you to a different place. You were at this one part of the encampment, and you step in, and now you are all the way over here. He said that's happened to a couple of the guys that had been there previous. And, he said, I haven't heard anything, but, let's not tempt fate. And he said, usually it's not English, it's a broken English that we're going to hear, supposedly. So about 2 weeks into this, he said 13 to 14 days into this, after everything's going as planned, there are not casualties, but there are people that have been hurt and such, but nothing, and they've not heard anything. So now they're just like, all right, we're almost out of here. We should have been out of here, but who knows, whatever. And come to find out, they've got another 2 weeks. It's going to be a month in and a month off. So now they're kind of not used to the area, but used to the area. They've kind of forgotten about the dangers of the jungle around them. No, nothing has happened as of yet. Midday one day, some loggers are cutting this area, and these security contractors are moving up with these loggers. So the loggers will cut a swath. Contractors will be there around the area to make sure any kind of indigenous, people who have never been made contact with humanity ever, except their own tribe, are not going to attack, and or wild animals. So they are moving, and cutting. One of the loggers is gone. They realize, like, there's a path, and they're 20 feet ahead, but there's a patch of, 10 feet behind. And they see a chainsaw lying there, and they realize, where's the logger? Where's his worker? His laborer. Where is his laborer? So now there's two people missing, an American and a indigenous person from this region. Chainsaw is sitting right there. They're looking around, and they're in a bit of a panic because, now they might have to go into the jungle. They might have to step into this tree line. The couple of loggers come back. They start moving along on that side to keep this swath going. Because what they are now essentially doing is they're just as they are cutting this mahogany, they are building a road too. So they're just cutting and, everything down. So they hear about right around, it's starting to get dark. It's still really humid. They hear some kind of like talk just off of the wooded area. And he said, I myself and another contractor came over. We're standing there looking, and we're thinking, is it one of these American loggers that's, gone missing? And they hear, he doesn't recall exactly what they were saying, but it was clearly English, but it wasn't in the dialect that we would use as Americans. Broken English. They then yell into the woods or jungle, hey, blah, blah, blah. They know his name. Is it you? No response. But they keep hearing this talking. Just like, I'm talking to you, but it's loud. And all of a sudden it stops, and there's this human yell, like a painful yell. Someone had gotten hurt yell. Right where they're looking. The guy that's with him runs into the jungle. He said, I watched him go 4, 5, 6 feet, 7 feet, and then I started to accompany him. He said, when I hit the tree line, when I broke into the tree line, he's now 10 feet ahead of me. And I'm watching him. He said, I have my rifle up. I'm keeping an eye on both sides of me and ahead of me. He said, and all of a sudden, this guy was gone. He just gone. And he stops and he's, yells, hey, whatever his name was, where the hell are you? Repeat, where the hell are you? Nothing. And he's like, what the? I just saw him and now he's gone. It was like, he's here and now he's not. Granted, we're not talking United States forests. We're talking rainforest. Deep Amazonian rainforest. So, maybe he fell and he can't see. And he makes that decision. I'm going to go to where I last saw him. And he cuts this way. And where he gets to roughly where he last spotted him, he doesn't see anything around. He doesn't see any kind of scuffling, any kind of debris, nothing. It's like everything is in its place except his coworker. He looks up, he's looking around. He said, I kept looking up thinking maybe, a jaguar or some sort of animal got him and brought him up in the trees. He's like, I don't see anything. He said, I immediately turned and broke towards the encampment, which is now, pretty deep, pretty far away, but the road is right there. There are loggers. There are other security. He said, I got to the clearing. And he said, I turned around and I yelled his name one more time, and I didn't see him. I didn't hear him. He said, I waited for some talking and nothing. He said, I radioed the other security officers or private contractors. I radioed our boss and I told him, hey, we are missing this guy. Come over here. His supervisor comes and he proceeds to tell him, we heard this talking and we heard this yell. Did you guys not hear it? No, we didn't hear anything. All right, this is what happened. I went in, he immediately ran the second he heard that yell of pain or whatever, an attack or something. He runs in. I'm 10 feet behind him, 20 feet away, and I can see him. I can see him 5 feet, 6 feet, and I'm a little hesitant about going in here because of everything that we've heard. And all of a sudden, he was there and he was gone. He said, I did not take my eyes off of him. He was there and he was gone. He said, I didn't see any lights. I didn't see an animal get him. I actually went out there. I looked in a small perimeter up into the trees and around. I did not find his rifle. I did not see any kind of scuffling. And his boss says, all right, go show these guys, 4 other guys where this happened. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to have 2 other guys with me, and we're going to see, exactly what happened. And now he's like, I don't want to go back in the jungle. I don't, after what I just saw. And he said, well, you can leave now. You can walk back to the village that, we had to 3-4 days in on boat. So you can walk however long it takes you to get there through the jungle along the river bank, but you're going to have to go into the jungles, or you can stay with us and be secure. At least there's power in numbers. And he's faced with the decision of the inevitable. He's staying. Fuck it, I gotta go in, He enters, there's 5 of them, and they're looking around, and they don't see anything, and this is exactly where he was. I was right here. This is where he was. Look. And so they put 2 of these guys, there's other teammates, in the 3 stand, and this is where. And they're looking around, and nothing. They proceed to come out after 20-30 minutes of looking, and they probably went about another 10 feet in. So now they're 20 feet into this deep jungle. And it's very eerie because the noises, this jungle noise that you're hearing around you is loud. It seems to be magnified, but it's of animals you've never heard and noises you've never heard here in America, or anywhere else he had been prior to this private military contracting job. So then they break and go to their encampment, and they're talking about, hey, what do we do? What can we do? How are we going to find his body? We can't leave him out there. He's one of us. Yes, we're not in the military anymore, but this is still a brotherhood. We got to find his body. We got to at least bring it back with us. And, that night they're talking, trying to figure out what they're going to do, what the plan of attack is. And there's about 15 to 16 other contractors with him. So these are who are talking. Of course, they're talking to the American loggers. It's almost like the Americans are separate from the indigenous. The indigenous are doing their own thing. The Americans are doing their thing and talking. And one of the loggers says to him, right around the time that you guys ran into the woods, he said, I saw you guys go in as I'm, waiting for my laborer to pull shit away and so I can keep going. what I saw was this really strange kind of glint in the trees, kind of moving. It looked kind of like a mirror would reflect in the sun, but it was in the trees, well above your head, and it went above you and proceeded to go towards to where he was. He said, I looked at you again. You're not looking at me, obviously, but I wanted to see if you saw it, if you were going to look up. And then I saw this look of terror on your face, so I thought you had seen it at that time. But that was when you had saw, your coworker disappear. And they're all now questioning this logger. Like, what do you mean? Was it a human? Was it, another animal? What the hell was it? And he said, it looked large like a human, but it was using the trees to move through these woods without touching the ground. And then it was gone. I didn't see any kind of weirdness after that. And they're all like, what the hell? All right. Then he must be in the trees. If this thing was using the trees, he must be in the trees. And they said, all right, well, come morning, right before you guys start cutting, we'll go and look and investigate this area. Maybe he's in the trees. Maybe it's tossed him down by now. Who knows? The next day, they go into the woods and they proceed to go to where he was. And they don't see any kind of nothing. They look in the trees. They don't see any blood. There's no, like the logger and his worker who disappeared, there's no, any kind of remnants. His gun isn't there. His rifle's not there. Anything that he had, unlike the chainsaw from that logger. And so they split. The leader, the supervisor says, let's go 20 feet apart and push. And the furthest we will go is 50 feet ahead from this point. When we're walking, we will check in with each other going down the line. So I will say my name. You will say your name, and so on, until we get to the end. And then you will say your name again, and it'll keep going that way. And when I don't hear X amount of names, we'll stop in case one of us goes missing again. All right. So that they proceed to, in this long line, 20 feet, 15 guys, 300 feet long line, boom, down, boom, Bill, Joe, duh. And they go in. They get to 20 feet, 30 feet. And they're doing this, and they hear this yell. This, what the hell, help me. He just remembers hearing terror. And they stop. They all stop. The supervisor, stop, hold up. Everyone now, say your name individually, starting with me, and move back, going that way. I want to count 15. Boom, 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 boom. 14. 14 names. All right. Move into each other. So the last guy, get to the next guy, get to the next guy, get to the next guy. So we meet, and there will be a convergence of the 14 remaining, hopefully the 15th. Maybe I miscounted. And they're 40 feet in, and they hear this yell again. Where the hell are you guys? What the hell's going on? Da 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 da. And they realize that it's the one guy that was part of this group, part of this 300 feet line of going in. But the noise is coming from behind them, out from the tree line. And so when they walk back, they all walk together. They're looking around and they come out and there's the guy. He's right there. And he's coming from the opposite side of this clear-cut road. You know, you got this 20 foot wide kind of road that they've been cutting and lugging the trees, you know, lugging the debris, everything out. And he's coming from the opposite side. And they all, you know, what the hell? How are you on this side? How are you here? And he said, I don't know. I was just here. I said my name and I waited for the other guy to say their name, but I didn't hear it. I didn't hear anyone on this side. I looked. I couldn't see anyone. He said, I thought you guys all disappeared, and I turned around and ran out of the jungle. And I came, and there I am on the opposite side. And I immediately knew I was on the opposite side because of, you know, I can see the clear difference. So I came to this side and yelled for you guys to come out. And they're like, this makes no sense. You literally traveled 40 feet, 20 feet, and another 40 feet. So you essentially were 100 feet behind us in the jungle. How is that possible? And they're all just now standing in this clear-cut road. And they say, you know, we're probably not going to find our coworker. We'll have to figure it out. Let's not go into this jungle again unless it's absolutely necessary. Do not go. Stick to a clearing, stick to your cutter and their laborer. Stick to them like glue, and we will move on. The decision's made. So the next day goes on, that night, they're asking him, you know, what the hell, you know, really occurred. Everybody's calmed down now. The day's over. They're eating their food and just unwinding from that day. And he said, I don't even know. He said, I remember saying my name. He said, I didn't feel anything grab me. He said, just the next thing I know, I'm behind you guys. And I can't see anybody 20 feet that way, 20 feet that way. I could barely see, but I couldn't anymore. So that's when I thought you guys disappeared, not me. So that, you know, dark, all right, we're going to do what our leader told us to do. Do not go into the woods. Stick to the plan. Guard the cutter, the lumberman, guard their worker. We're going to have to deal with the loss later in a report or what. Now they break off out of the kind of cafeteria canvas like tent, and there's 5 guys per military kind of tent, 5 cots, and there's 3 or 4 of those. They all go into their, and, you know, they talk amongst themselves. As they are walking out of the mess hall tent, they see eyes along the jungle and different height, but larger than them. Some roughly 7, some 8 feet in height. And they're these just glowing red hellfire eyes. About 10 of them just staring. And they all kind of raise their rifle, ready to, engage. And they hear this horrendous howl, like a wolf's howl. And all of them, just this kind of echo. And they hear movement amongst the other loggers now. Loggers are coming out of their tents. And they're pretty much camped out the same way. 5 guys, per tent. And that way there's security with the, amongst all of them. But they watch the indigenous people that are from this area kind of start to scuffle around and freak out. They're just kind of standing behind everybody, talking amongst themselves very rapidly. And the one guy that they had picked up at the initial river city just states that word, that werewolf Dogman word in their native tongue to him, and he says, "Is that what these things are? What do they want? What do they want?" One steps into the opening of this encampment and stands there probably 6-7 feet from the jungle tree line. And it just stares at everybody there. And it lets up this howl and walks back into this jungle. And they're all now like, what the hell? Now they've seen a savage attack from the prior security force showed them this is what you're going to deal with. They've lost a guy. They've had a guy do some sort of time slip, a warp, whatever the hell you want to call it. And they've heard talking, and now this thing is in front of them with a small pack behind them. It drops down onto all fours. So from 8 feet to now 4 or 5 feet at the shoulder haunch and walks into the jungle. One of the guys that he said was kind of an asshole, real smart mouth kind of guy, a person you don't want to have your back in any case, ended up opening fire on this thing as it's walking away from them all. There was no engagement until he starts shooting. And he's pretty sure that it didn't hit it because how it ran into the woods in a way, and then they could see the eyes drop and run. And it was so quick. You'd see these eyes and they'd just drop, but they'd keep looking at you. And then you'd almost see like the corner of a glowing red singular eye as it's running deeper into the jungle. And now everyone's on high alert. And this guy is getting his ass chewed out by everybody. Like, what the fuck were you thinking? You just essentially put us all in danger. And he said, whatever, fuck this place. I'm never coming back here again. This, and that. And the supervisor says, fuck this place, fuck you, get out. And, pack and walk. We don't need you here. You possibly could have just started something. We don't know what these things are. And they all kind of walk back. A few of the guys talk to the man in charge and, convince him not to let this guy, to keep him. He's probably fucking scared. I'm scared. Keep him. I was probably going to shoot next if he didn't. So, let's not have him walk at night, and hopefully he never does anything like that again. The next morning, they get up, and he is at day 9 till the other loggers in the next group of security come in. 9 days. He's counting it down on his little calendar thing in his tent. As they get out and converge to figure out what the plan is going to be, are we going to stand behind the loggers, to the side of them? What's best for them to keep them safe? We're getting paid for this. They're getting paid to cut trees down. These guys are getting paid to haul debris. So they come to the conclusion of, we're going to stand, some will stand beside, on the sides of the swath that these guys are cutting. Some will stand in the back. That way, whoever's in the back is watching the loggers and the laborers, and on the sides are watching, and we can all kind of see everything around us. We know that whatever is behind us is clear, already a clear-cut kind of road area. So that's how we will keep everyone safe. Day 9, or not day 9, 9 days till they leave. And for the next 4 days, there is no kind of, any kind of noises, strangeness, disappearances. As of now, they've got a logger, a laborer, and a security contractor gone. No sight. They've spotted some sort of mirrored like human in the trees, and this kind of strange pack of dogmen that stood on the edge of the trees for no apparent reason except to just make themselves known. During the time, the 4 days of work where nothing happened, he had found out that one of the guys that was indigenous from that River City area had said that the reason why those dogman creatures, not dogmen, there was a name that they were using. He does not know the exact name, but the reason why they are there is as of a sort of protection, to protect the people who live here and the wood, the trees that are getting cut, the land, not the loggers, not the security, and not the laborers who were not from this area. So, essentially he, in his mind, and what he's saying to these contractors is, they're here to protect us, not you, and our land, and this land, our home. Which kind of puts everyone on high alert now, because he's like, what are you talking about? These things were, we saw you guys scurrying around and this and that, but there is nothing, no kind of strangeness. They get notification. There is like a radio there where they can communicate with the people who are coming in to relieve these guys, relieve the loggers, relieve the security, and bring supplies in. They are now notified, hey, we are at this point in our trip. We will be there in 3.5 to 4 days. And that's exactly what he's been waiting for, is to get the hell out of this area. He never wants to come back, At this point, he is so messed up that he does not want to ever come back here. 2 days before they're leaving, mind you, everything is really strangely calm. He said, I can only call it like the eye before the storm. And they get notification, hey, we are at this River City now. We will be there in about a day and a half now. See you soon. But they have to stay. So when they come, the people to relieve everyone, these guys still have to work a day, maybe 2 days after, because these guys are setting up, these guys are unloading. The workers are still working up until their time that they signed on for and everything. Now, the second to last night, they are at this mess hall, they're eating, and it is just starting to get dark. And they hear these kind of pained yells, and they hear in not broken English, they hear the voice of the guy who went missing when he was 10 feet diagonally from him. Excuse me. Scream out something like, hey, you left me. Hey, you left me. And those words have stuck with him because that's exactly in his own mind. At that point, I left him. I ran to him, but I couldn't find him. We didn't go and, we never found him. And everything is just loud and terrifying that night. They're told, whatever you do, do not go into any, even 10 feet from the tree line. Stay as far away from it as possible. We have X amount of time here. Let's call it, 3 people gone, no more. Because prior to that, the guys that they relieved, they carried out five people total. These got 3, but no one's coming out because wherever the jungle took them. Day starts. They're going to use the same protection routine behind on the side, and everyone is secure. They're cutting, the cutters are cutting, the laborers are laboring, and it's the strangest part of it is as the people are on the sides and the people in the back are watching everybody, you'd almost think that it would be the person, the workers in the middle were the safest. But that's not how it went. All of a sudden, they're cutting. These guys are cutting, and work stops. For some reason, one of the guys that are operating the chainsaw realizes that next to him, the workers next to him are no longer working. And then next to him, they're no longer working. But these guys are now, so there's a line of loggers. And in the middle, you've got 2 loggers, 2 laborers that are no longer working and no longer in front of anybody. You've got people behind you and on the side of you, and they're watching, and now they're gone. And they are in the woods. They're not, they're clear cutting this road. So they're, a tree or 2 trees in. But still, that's jungle beyond that point. It's just like on the sides. And so the loggers, the laborers, all proceed to go back to where the security is, and the security guys push ahead. And they're all looking like, where the hell are the four of these guys? And as they're looking and talking, they hear kind of this movement in the brush and jungle, but they can't see because it's thick. You've got vine, you've got huge leaves that are just enormous, so alien to what Americans are used to seeing. And out of the jungle, you hear this sickening thud. And it's one of the loggers. It appeared like he had gotten thrown from the jungle. Like, they didn't see anything throw him. How did he go through, the trees? It was like he just thud, hit the ground. No one saw him kind of go this way. It was just thud. And he was dead. He was just a mess of a person. They flip him over. They're looking at him. And as they're looking at him, they're like, what the hell? Like, he looks crushed. He looks crushed. What? And as they're talking, they hear screams of pain and agony. And it's what they assume the other logger and the two laborers. And they're looking at this guy and they're like, what could have crushed him like this? And there's still the 15. The supervisor says, go to the 5. Take 5 and go. Do not go too far in. Make sure you can see behind you, but go. They don't sound like they're too far. And however he got out here, he couldn't have been thrown that far through the dense jungle. They can't be too far. 5, including the gentleman who contacted me, go in, and they can see behind them because they keep checking behind them. And they can see in front of them and on the side of them. They can, they keep walking 5, 6, 7 feet in. And as one of them looks over their shoulders to see if they can still see the clearing, he says, guys, where are we? And they all turn and look, and the clearing's not there. The clearing is just no longer behind them. They turn and they walk this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet where the clearing should be. They've walked 10, 12 feet out. They've walked 12 feet back. Clearing should be right there, and it's not. It's just dense jungle all around them. They all kind of get into a quick kind of huddle, like inches away from each other, shoulder to shoulder, and they're looking like, you keep me safe, I'll keep you safe. And they're yelling. They can't hear any response. They don't hear anything. And then all of a sudden, the forest just starts to tremor, right? And they all are like, what? What is going on? Is it an earthquake? Because it feels like, thump, thump, thump. And they get down and, they position themselves at the ready. The 5, 2 all around looking north, west, east, south. They're not seeing anything. They're not hearing anything except this thump, thump. And they can hear now, they hear it getting closer, and they hear trees kind of getting pushed aside. And it stops. And one of the guys that's in the front says, "What in the hell? What, guys, what is that?" And they look, and probably 20, 30 feet away. But he said that you could see how deep the jungle was, but for some reason, this thing made itself visible to us. And he said it looked like a kind of what you would picture a Aztecian warrior. But it was absolutely huge. It was as tall as, some of the smaller trees. And it had what appeared to be gold, what these Aztecian warriors would appear to look like to the conquistadors or whatnot, But it's 20, 22 feet tall. As tall as some of the smaller trees. And they're looking at it. And they're like, do we engage? What do we do? And it thump, thump, thump. And it stops. And now it's 10 feet in front of them. And it looks down at them. And they all are just in absolute terror, because now they can see visibly that it is a human. They can see that it does not have shoes. It has these kind of cuffs on its ankles, like kind of like these, like a jewelry. It's wearing kind of like a loincloth. It has this thing on its head, and it's got cuffs on its arms, like jewelry kind of arms. And it's just standing there staring at them. And it picks its foot up. And as it's coming down, they are back 10 feet away from the clearing. They realize, they all kind of close their eyes. They think this thing's going to step on them. But between the time it would have to at that point, they looking around for it, like we didn't get crushed. And one of them looks behind and he says, "Holy shit, we're back. We're back to where we were." And all of them take off running as fast as they can to the clearing. And there's the 10, their leader, the guy in charge, the 9 other security officers, or private security, and the logger who they had just flipped over. And the supervisor looks at these 5 guys and says, "Where the hell have you been?" And they're like, "We've been gone for 6-7 minutes. We just saw this huge man that looked like, some sort of Aztecian warrior, Mayan, whatever. We have, and he's like, "You've been out there for almost an hour, 45 minutes. You've been gone. We've been yelling for you. We thought, now, great. We have 7 missing people and now another 5, 1 body. What do they're," and they tell him, "This is what we just saw. This is exactly what we just saw. We saw this, this, and that." And one of the other private security contractor says, "It was going to step on you?" And they're all like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Look at this." And they look at the logger and how they had flipped him over, and they could see a 3-foot, maybe a little bigger, but a 3-foot footprint had crushed this guy. So it was like a toe was where this guy's face was, his chest was, but it was an imprint on his body. You could see a partial of a heel. You could see a toe. You could just see that he had clearly been stepped on and then tossed. And they're just baffled, like, holy shit. That thing out there is real. It killed this logger. You know, we got to stop. Because if that thing's out there, it could easily come into this clearing and kill us all. As they're cleaning up, picking up, figuring out, you know, let's go, call it a day. The boat has now come up. They have now brought the logger, put him in the health tent, put him in a body bag, and leader to leader are talking. These guys are talking to the guys that are relieving them, and they're flat out saying, you know, don't go into the woods. Don't listen to any of the noises that you're going to hear out there. Don't listen to the indigenous either, because they will lie to you. Just stick to yourself, watch each other's back, and you should be okay. We have a total of 11 missing people, with the people that had just gotten pulled out and now. You know, so you've got the 7 here and the guys that they relieved that we've seen since we've been here. When we got here, they were pulling out X amount of people. We have 7. There's no explanation. We have had time loss. We have seen these werewolves coming to the edge, and we saw this kind of jungle giant. And, you know, the other contractors are kind of bullshit, you know. Ha ha ha. You know, you guys are playing the initiation game on us. And, you know, they're adamant. We're not, you know, don't go into the jungle. You'll hear people talking. You'll hear screams. Don't. The jungle will move you. It will get you lost. It will play games with you. And so the day goes by. They get everybody set up to where, you know, the new guys coming in are set. The new loggers are set. And they pack up their dead. The one dead guy that they got out of here, because everyone else is missing and presumed dead. And they get on their boat. A day and a half later, they're at the river city, and they're going to stay the half a night or whatever it is, because they can't travel by night. And so they are drinking beer, unwinding, happy to be out of there, and talking to whoever is among them. And one of the indigenous women that is working here, he said she was maybe a prostitute, maybe a bartender. You really didn't know. It was kind of weird. But she had heard these guys talk about the lost time and this jungle giant that was going to step on these 5, but had stepped on the logger. And she looked at everybody and came to the table really quick and used some sort of name, but the description was, he is the one who keeps our sacred jungle, our sacred land, the medicines that are in here, the food that is in here, everything that's sacred in here. He is the one that keeps it safe from you. And, some sort of indigenous language. It wasn't Portuguese and it wasn't Spanish. It was some other kind of language. But he is the one who keeps everything safe and the jungle thriving. And he only attacks and uses his powers and minions and whatnot to get you out of here. And yet you keep coming. When are you going to stop? And at that point, they're out. They get back stateside through Bolivia. They fly out and land in Texas, where he is met by some friends to pick him up. And he then tells everybody, what occurred. A few of the people are like, are you now on drugs after this? Because you think South America during the late 70s, early 80s, drug wars, and your best friend comes back saying warped time, warped change of places, werewolves, a giant creature that's in the jungle that keeps everything growing and safe. You just don't know what to make of it. Friends are like bullshit. And when he realized that anyone stateside that wasn't with him wasn't going to believe what he was saying, he kind of just shut it off and said, I no longer am going to talk about this. I no longer want to hear about it anymore of my own. At some point in his life, he decided to start looking into, he bought the Book of Enoch. He started listening to cryptids on YouTube, watching anything he could find, cryptid related, any kind of paranormal related. And since then has just, never ever wanted to go back, came to terms with it mentally, but was on our live stream one night after hearing the experience about the two dogmen working with the Nephilim there. And that's when he decided to reach out, because he said, maybe these things, this giant creature that we saw, maybe it isn't evil like the dogmen are in attacking people for no reason, but maybe it attacks and makes people disappear as a way of keeping everything safe and revolving down there. Keep everything growing and keep everything beautiful and lush. The sacred medicine safe with its indigenous people. And he's quite happy to never go hunting. He doesn't hunt. He just doesn't go into woods wherever it is. Even in his backyard, he won't cross the wood line, So he is officially PTSD, but crazy, whatever these things are down there. And at that point, were they coming out of portals? How'd that time travel work? How'd this work? It makes no sense, but it does make sense because we hear it every day. Are those dogmen, did they come out of a portal and disappear? How did they know? It makes no sense. And why didn't it kill them? That's what he said. Why didn't it step on us? Why, when it looked like its foot was coming down, were we back to where the clearing is and safe? And with that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and honestly, what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect we all deserve, and that is because of all of you, so thank you. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there. These events are real. They happen. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.